Welcome to our third session of SEPAC Summer School. Today we'll be talking about inclusion in your SEPAC or Special Education Parent Advisory Council. Our learning objectives today is to have SEPACs look at how they can welcome all families and maybe remove some barriers for families to participate. SEPACs can take a self-assessment to see where they're at in terms of creating an environment for families to participate. SEPACs need to find district data to inform them and engage strategies to meet the needs of families. I hope SEPACs will commit to creating a sense of belonging for everyone and deal with conflict when it arises. SEPACs can be champions of those increased inclusive environments in schools for students with disabilities. Members can also support inclusion in their local SEPAC. They can remove barriers to participation, broaden the definition of family, and actively seek diverse voices. A SEPAC that's representative of all of the families of students with disabilities in the district can provide the most equitable perspective on matters that pertain to special education and the safety of students with disabilities. The SEPAC law in Massachusetts has a clause that says membership shall be offered to all parents of disabilities and other interested parties. And so it can be inclusive of many voices and go even beyond families of students with disabilities to include those other interested parties. But I hope SEPACs continue to be led and directed by parent and family leaders. SEPACs need to look at what are the barriers that might preclude families in their community from participating. We know that everyone is under a lot of time constraints and our work schedules are complex. Often, the SEPAC has a tight-knit group of people who are used to working with one another. And when someone new comes in, they may feel unwelcome. So we need to remove that barrier, to welcome someone, to create that sense of here's how we operate, sharing information, ideas, rules, structure, and invite that new voice to the table. They often have a lack of representation from all of the disability types in the district, from all the age groups of district, even locations within the community. Language and childcare needs can be barriers for families to participate. I don't think SEPACs have all the answers, but they need to address some of these barriers to make sure that the SEPAC is doing its best to do that outreach and create that welcome environment. Possibly they can offer different types of transportation or carpooling. Many SEPACs are meeting virtually, which helps families who might have transportation issues or childcare issues, but they need to know that these families have access to virtual platforms and the internet. Many people have negative experiences when they're dealing with school or a different environment, and you need to just address that. What can you do to bring somebody on board to make them feel comfortable and to welcome them to the environment? And a lot of families are experiencing burnout. There's a lot of things on the plates of families of children with disabilities. And so how do you create a small opportunity for them to participate so they can avoid burnout? Many SEPACs kind of take a self-assessment on, where they're at. What does your group need to do to change and to grow? I've included a link here that's on the Federation's website that comes from the National Guide, doing a SEPAC self-assessment, asking your group some of these questions that might lead to discussions on how you can change and grow. Our strengthening partnership family engagement frameworks here in Massachusetts also looks at this issue of how do you create a respectful, welcoming, inclusive, safe environment for everyone. And what I like about this chart and this guide is it has three levels. And so you can be just in the initiating phase, just starting something, but moving yourself towards a better environment. So you can just have a basic level of development. You can be functioning pretty well and progressing and creating that environment. But there's also a level of how do you have a more higher functioning, meeting that level where you're really most effective, and you've implemented those practices or embedded them into your strategies and to your practices. So that this is another way for you to even examine how would you create change within your CPAC. I think everything should be reflective of the data that you can collect about your district that can help, what is our CPAC, our current structure, and how can we be informed by the data to create a better structure and a more inclusive CPAC. And so looking at what disability types are represented in your district, what are the majority of students with disabilities, what categories do they fall into? And do you have a family or a parent that reflects that disability type so they can inform the CPAC as to current special education practices in the district, focusing on that disability, specific language, specific learning disability, that language-based dyslexia is usually the number one disability type represented in the district, although health impairment, those students with ADHD and autism are also a higher percentage of students with disabilities. So you can look up on the DESE website for your school district and get those numbers so that you're informed as you look as how your CPAC is representative of the disability types in your district. It also should think about what are the languages that are spoken by families in your district and the English language learner students. And that information is also available on the website so you can understand the percentage of students and families that might speak another language. I think this is a good discussion to have with your school district to understand what languages they might be translating materials into, and what languages you as the CPAC might have to provide materials in those languages or interpreters for your CPAC meetings. You want to be able to give access to every family in the district who has a student with a disability to your meetings, to your programming, and that might mean taking a census of what languages do you need to address. There are many strategies that CPACs have used over the years to increase engagement in their group. I think having some flexibility around meeting schedules, offering that childcare, food, maybe even transportation, so that families can participate. I always encourage lots of different ways that families can participate. No contribution is too small, and someone might be able to do something and not even attend meetings, but contribute to the efforts of the CPAC. Maybe holding your meetings in different locations, either different schools within the district, your library, a community space. Where are people at and where can you go? They might feel more comfortable meeting outside of a school for at least one of the meetings during the year. I think having regular communication, best practices, using interpretation, having materials translated is another way to increase engagement, increase access to the information that the CPAC has. I like a personal welcome. We can send out emails, we can put up flyers, but being at an open house and welcoming people to your table, to your group, meeting people in different community events and making sure that they're aware of the CPAC, and asking them to join you, to participate, maybe even assigning a parent mentor so that somebody who's new can kind of ask questions about what's the practice of the CPAC to just somebody individually rather than in a group setting, and get that mentorship of understanding of how things are happening. I think you need to encourage people to participate, and they might have a skill that you need, and identify that skill, that need in the community, so that you can encourage people to participate, even at that one small level of providing that skill level to the CPAC. I think we've got to embrace our rich, wonderful, diverse communities and make sure that all of those voices are represented at the CPAC as an advisor to the district. You need to have that perspective to be a really to create that vibrant conversation within the district of how special education and the safety of students with disabilities is currently working. And that one way to do that is to collaborate with other organizations in the community that might already have a structure where families are participating. And you could go to those community organizations and get some feedback that way. I encourage everyone to use technology. Having virtual meetings is meeting the needs of many families. The Federation is doing lots of our training via technology, and can also provide captioning and translated materials within the virtual settings. I think many CPACs have been successful by creating like that welcome packet. How do we operate? Some kind of either a virtual folder or actually a paper folder that includes the bylaws, any type of procedures or practices, values that the CPAC might have established, contact information. Where can families find answers to questions? Having those how-to information pages are very important as someone is starting to join a group, and so they can get oriented pretty quickly. I hope that we create a sense of belonging, that everyone, all families, no matter what their income is, their race, their education, their language, their culture, they all want their children to do well in school. And they can make an important contribution to not only their own children's learning, but every child's learning, especially by participating on the CPAC. General flyers work really well, and I think you should post them around in public places. It's one way for families to learn about a CPAC, but those personal invitations, having a CPAC officer go to the PTO meetings or any other type of community events, so that parents are aware and can make that connection to that individual, and ask questions. If you can, and reach out, call, have a referral from a friend, another parent, and make that connection. Ask people, could they help? Could they participate, even in a very small way, to get started, to learn about the CPAC? All of the tips that I've received from CPACs over the years, I've put into a one-pager about how they use best practices to welcome new families to the CPAC. By bringing in all of these diverse perspectives and insights, the discussions in your CPAC might become much more dynamic, because you're inviting different opinions to the table. And often there's some disagreement there. I think that disagreement can increase the perspectives of everyone, and it offers an opportunity for you not to say rule by majority, but to build that group cohesion. How do you come to a decision by consensus? How do you reach a level where everyone can agree on how to move forward? So you're expanding viewpoints. You're not holding anyone back by just saying, well, it's 5 to 4, we're moving forward, this is the decision, you're stopping and listening. And I think that's a really great practice for the CPACs. Does it take longer? Is it a little bit more maybe contentious or disagreements? But I think that the movement forward will have more strength behind it because people are coming together. When conflict does arise, or when there seems to be, you're getting off course in a meeting, come back and focus on that meeting agenda. Make sure that you're going to follow through on the agenda. You can identify that maybe an agenda item might need some more time, and you can put that on a future agenda. You just maybe can wage the room and see how people want to continue also. Recognize that this is happening, and do people want to stay on that topic and move forward and make a decision, or maybe continue at a later date. I think we just need to make sure that it doesn't get personal. This is issues that we're all passionate about, and we all want to move forward in a cohesive way. That's the best way that the CPAC can present information to the school district. It's not winning, that's not the goal. It's just what would be the position and the strategies that the CPAC would use to be that trusted advisor to the school district. And I think ultimately you try to resolve things in a positive way, even if you just agree to disagree. I think keeping the students, the interests of the students at the center of the discussion is another strategy to help your group move forward when you can't agree on any given issue. I just want to make sure that people who are participating in CPAC Summer School this year know that our MassPAC support for CPAC district membership is open. We've started, and you can find more information on our website. Thank you. And if you need to connect to the Federation, here's our contact information. We're happy to take your call or to connect you via email. Just complete our intake form. Thank you for joining us today.